Okay. All right, here are your three candidates here for the library board. You have Michael Ludwig, Michael Lucchese. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Good. And Merrill Sussman. Good evening to you all. And
If you want a mic. You want a mic?
I'm okay.
I'm not sure how the recording will accept the voices, so that's up to.
That would be better.
yeah, okay.
Oh, okay. No. Hello? No. Yeah, no. Oh, there we go. Now we have it. Okay, thank you.
Library Director Kathy Overton is going to be the time monitor. She's going to hold up cards when you have 1 minute left, when you have 30 seconds left, and then you have time left. Susan has distributed and collected index cards for questions from the audience. If there are any other ones that come up, Susan, you can bring them to me. And Priscilla is going to take the minutes. We are going to use the school district's placement on the ballot for the order of statements and questions. So that's the order that they're up there: Michael Ludwig, Michael Lucchese, and Merrill Sussman. So you're going to each have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. And we're going to start with Michael Ludwig.
Good evening, and thank you for coming. I'm Michael Ludwig. I'm currently serving as trustee, and I'm running for a second term. My family and I moved to Rockville Center in 2003. Both of my children graduated from the Rockville Center School District and are currently in college. Our family spent many days at the library browsing the excellent children's collection and participating in programs offered to young families. I've always loved libraries. Growing up in New York City, the public library was a place where I knew I was welcome and where I could explore whatever was of interest to me. While earning my bachelor's and master's degrees, the Cortland Library was a repository of resources and a quiet place to study. During my PhD studies at Penn State, I used the research collection of Pat T. Library while I wrote my dissertation. When not commuting from Manhattan to Hofstra, before I moved out here, I would spend time in the Rhodes Reading Room at the main branch of the New York City Library. Recently, I attended an architectural tour of the newly renovated Stavros Niarchos Library, and I highly recommend it. It's the former Midtown Manhattan Library. Aware of my planned retirement, I decided to run for trustee and won a seat 3 years ago in an uncontested election. As a current board member, I learned much about the institution I've come to treasure. It's an institution run by dedicated professionals and other community members whose sole purpose is to meet the needs of our community. For those not familiar with the library, it is much more than shelves full of books. It's a place where a helpful hand is always available, a place for internet access, a place to print something, even from your phone while traveling home on the railroad, a place for ever-expanding digital resources, a place for toddlers and children to socialize and learn, a place for young professionals to prepare for the next career step, a place for senior citizens to find camaraderie and continue to explore the contours of our ever-changing world. The pandemic was a challenge for everyone. However, the silver lining is how the Rockville Center Library adjusted its programming. While we are now back in person, hybrid and virtual offerings will continue. This is a huge benefit for many in our community and it demonstrates the creativity and hard work of all library employees. It's been a privilege to serve as trustee for the past 3 years, and tonight I'm asking for your vote so I can continue to serve the Rockville Center Public Library.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, because you guys, you don't really see me.
Kathy, is it 2 minutes? Is that what it is? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Lucchese, and I am a lifelong resident of the village of Rockville Center. I'm a husband to my wife, Lisa, whose family also has deep roots here in Rockville Center. Her grandfather actually opened the first pizzeria here in Rockville Center in 1953, called Sherry's Pizzeria on Lakeview Avenue. We have 2 young sons, Joseph and Vincent. Joey is excited to be entering kindergarten at Wilson Elementary next year, and Vince loves spending his weekdays at the Learning Academy located at the St. Mark's Church. I have been a volunteer in the village since I graduated college in 2006. So why the library? I have been in and out of this library my whole entire life. I have early memories as a young child being in awe of all the books and how it instantaneously sparked a feeling of both curiosity and security. Even in my late teens, it was a place I could go to prepare for the SATs with my uncle, who was a teacher, while my father, who sat by the front door reading the newspapers that were draped over the wooden sticks. While these memories stress the importance of education in my life, they also show how this establishment allowed a common place for my family to contribute to that goal of my future as a lifelong learner. That's okay. Now we walk through these doors with our own boys and enjoy the solace in a time where the world moves fast. We enjoy accessing the toddler programs as they have provided our boys with opportunities for social connections at a young age. The library has always been the centerpiece of this village. And as a person with an unwavering amount of hometown pride, I see no better place to volunteer my time at this stage in my life to help my community. So why do I think I would be a good trustee? I have 15 years in the financial services industry. I am currently employed at Raymond James. My career in finance can help the team here at the library manage the budget and be fiscally responsible while achieving common goals and bettering the library. My 15 years of coaching experience, I was a lacrosse coach for a lot of years here in the village, and lifelong contacts in this village can help the team with community relations and programs. My wife is a former educator and currently a special education school administrator. I would like to explore how we can expand. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone. Books and libraries have been central to my life. In fact, my earliest memory as a child was the bookmobile in Levittown that would bring books to us. My mother was marooned in the suburbs. She couldn't drive, and so having services brought to us was very important. My family could not afford summer camp, so my summer camp was getting on my bike and riding to the library and meeting my friends there, selecting books, reading all day, going out to a picnic lunch, coming back in and reading some more. That was summer camp. As an undergrad and a graduate student, of course, libraries were central to my research. And one of the revolutions that occurred while I was in school was the transition to online references. And it was the librarians who navigated that for me and helped us get into the online resources we needed for our research. My career was in administration in community colleges, public community colleges in 3 states. And as we moved, and my husband's career also moved, he would select the house. But before we signed the contract, I investigated the library. One of the things I checked out was the extent of the collection and the varied services that supported the community. My husband was raised in this town. I was raised in Levittown, as I mentioned. We raised our family in Baldwin before we moved to the Midwest, Massachusetts, and then the Midwest. When we decided to retire, as our bank told us, we were probably the only family that retired back into Rockville Center. And now I am retired and I have time to devote to public service. And so my thought was, I want to serve the library. It has been important throughout my lifetime. And now it's my turn to give back.
Now, you can just put the mic down. So, in order, again, the same order, and we're going to ask, I have questions that have been given to me from the audience, and that they've gathered also, I think, from some online submissions as well. So we're going to keep with the same order, and I'll start with you. I will. Okay, so the first question, but you'll each have 90 seconds to answer the question. So please kind of keep your eye on Kathy in the back there, so you can watch your time. All right, so the first question, Kathy, are you ready? Yeah, is that a yes? Good. Okay, so the first question is, what is the board's role in the face of attempts to ban books or control the availability of materials to the public?
Yeah, I believe the board's role is to support the freedom of citizens in a democratic society to pursue knowledge via the access to print and digital resources available in public libraries, even if considered unorthodox or controversial by some. The right to access is enshrined in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, which states, as you may know, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Further, the American Library Association has a library bill of rights, which supports the availability of materials and resources to all members of the community served by the library. Included in the Library Bill of Rights is the idea that libraries have a policy for how the collection is developed and a procedure for responding to challenges to the resources and materials available in the library. Books and other kinds of print materials have the ability to bring people together to share values and debate issues based on evidence and fact. Censorship creates division and animosity, and God knows there is more than enough of that to go around these days. Lastly, banning books and other materials is a hallmark of autocracy and fascism. And as Alexander Vindman reminded us recently, in America, right matters. Let's keep it that way.
Mr. Lucchese?
Yes, I answered the same question.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so I think, it's very dangerous to start, pulling books. I am against it. I think it's a slippery slope. I believe that, we should not be in that position to do that. So I am against it. Now, I am a person that still has to learn, right? I know that the board of the library has to, has certain rights and things that they can or cannot do. But if we did have that right to be able to pull books or not, I would be against it, because I think that it's a slippery slope. And you get to the point where, would you ban this book and not that book, or whatever? And then it comes to a judgment call, and it's very hard to be able to make that decision. So I am against any sort of pulling or banning books. That's where I stand on that. Thank you very much.
Ms. Sussman?
Well, I agree. I don't think libraries are an integral part of our democracy. They allow any resident to access information, and librarians are trained not to make judgment calls. You could literally go into the library and ask a librarian for help in finding out something that you need to know. And that librarian professionally will not question why you want to know it, and should you not know it, or maybe that's not a good idea. Access to knowledge is for all citizens. I do agree that in rulings related to the First Amendment, there was also the ruling that in access to information and free speech also implies the freedom to read, to get information that you need. So I agree. It's not for the board and it's not for the library to start banning. The librarians have the responsibility for the collection and to provide access to quality materials that are professionally created and valued by experts, and we should have access to that.
Next question, again for Mr. Ludwig. We're just staying in the same order. Oh, you switching? Oh, okay, all right, so the second question will start with Mr. Lucchese. Thank you. Okay, what is the biggest problem facing the library in the next 5 years, and how would you solve it?
Okay. All right, so the issue facing the library, I believe, is I kind of touched on this originally in my opening statement. I think that society's increasing dependence on screen time and devices, especially with children, is a big issue. And my wife is a administrator at Bethpage School District. And in her district, I'm not saying that, we don't do this here. I still have a lot to learn. Like I said, I hope to be a representative of the community in this position, but they do a library expo, which is really cool, where they invite the community, all different areas, teens, kids, adults, to come and kind of like show the offerings. And they have success there in their village, or excuse me, in their town, pulling people away from, and kids especially, away at, in the evening times when they're often playing video games, things like that, to come and offer and expand the various programs for children. So anyway, I think that is a big issue. I think that the library has to come up against, but I think that we could overcome that. I already think everyone here is doing an amazing job, but I think that a library expo would be a great idea to show the offerings of the library. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Sussman.
The pandemic has, in a way, informed us what the future might look like, in the sense that people, the usage of electronic books and audiobooks skyrocketed during the time that people could not physically come in to borrow books. And what it created was a vision of a library where increasingly we would access materials via online searches and online delivery. But what we desire is time together. And so there are many, many discussions about libraries being the open center of a community where all citizens can come together for all different types of purposes. And I know that there are thoughts that the actual physical collections will change and diminish in the space it actually requires, which would allow us to have more community space. There's something called maker spaces where people come together for creative purposes to share ideas and creations. I think that that's the future of the library as a centerpiece of the community. And as the New York Times said, the libraries are still people's spaces. And I see that as the future. And that requires us to fund the maintenance and the expansion and the updating of our physical space.
Thank you. As a board member, I have a little bit of a different perspective, and every year we have an accountant come in and tell us about our finances. And so from my perspective, the biggest challenge that face libraries is money, as you mentioned, because I believe that it's important to have a professional staff at the library, and the library has a significant number of union employees. I should also, in full disclosure, that I'm sticking to the union. I'm a member of AAUP, and but one of the concerns that is frequently presented by our accountant that is 10 or 15 or maybe 20 years down the line, the cost of health insurance and retirement funds for our current employees may be unsustainable. And so we need to be able to continue to fund the library at a level that allows us to continue to offer the professional services that people have come to expect. And also, I know that every year our local representatives go up to Albany to make sure that we try to get a little bit more money out of Albany for our libraries. And so, again, the biggest challenge is facing, that the libraries are facing, is money, because there has been a movement to get rid of or try to reduce the impact of unions. And surely if you could bring in people who pay them, without providing benefits, that would be something that would be detrimental to the library, because the professional staff is what is the most important thing about our library. Thank you.
The next question will start with Ms. Sussman. How do you feel about eliminating or reducing overdue fees and fines?
I think it's a question that needs to be researched, and we're very fortunate that the Brooklyn Public Library System and the New York Public Library System have eliminated fines. So we can now watch what happens. Initially, what they found out was there were more books returned because people had books for years and they were afraid to show up with them, but now they could. Whether that's just an uptick in return books and then it will level off, we have to ask the question about what the purpose of the fines are. Now, facing that, one of the things that I found very exciting was the new board policy that the librarian brought to us about default renewal. So that instead of you actively renewing a book, it will be automatically renewed. So you won't incur late fines, with the idea that unless someone else is waiting for it, why punish you? So you get an automatic renewal. Unlike on Libby, when I'm late with some of my books and my book disappears. But I think that there might be other ways to handle fines, such as I came across an article on Read Away a Fine, where children are encouraged to read and reduce their fines, so that you're encouraging the reading and you're actually having them take responsibility. So shortly, I think we need to consider it and watch what's happening in the local library systems before we make a change.
Okay, there's a growing movement among libraries to eliminate or reduce overdue fines. In a March 31st, 2022 article in the New York Times entitled, "The Library Ends Late Fees and the Treasures Roll In." The decision in New York City set off a wave of returns accompanied by bashful notes of apology and gratitude. Quote, "We learned that we could adjust our budget to do everything we needed to do and cover the lost revenue because we're not in the revenue generating business," Mr. Marks, who's the head of the New York City Library and former president of Amherst College. "We're not in the fine collection business. We're in the encouraging to read and learn business, and we're getting in our own way." At our library, we recently reduced many of the overdue fines and have held amnesty days with the intent to have people return the materials they may have been reluctant to return out of embarrassment or the inability to pay. While we do generate income from the collection of fines, it's not a substantial percent of our budget, and it seems we will continue to move in the direction of eliminating and or reducing fines to promote the use of the library, because it is, after all, a public institution funded by the citizens of Rockville Center.
Thank you. So I stand I'd be open to reducing the fees, and I think the amnesty days are a great idea. Personally, I believe that there has to be some sort of a deterrent system. I think teaching kids accountability, that if they take something, they have to bring it back, is extremely important. So where I stand, I think there has to be some sort of a fee system. I would be open to amnesty days. I'd be open to removing it, but I don't think it should be completely removed. Being that we are representatives of the taxpayers of this village, I think that it's important that, if books disappear, the taxpayers pay to fill those slots, right? As far as I understand. Now, I think that the taxpayer dollars could be used to go to more, better purposes to better the library. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I'm open to reducing them, I'm open to amnesty days, but I think that we should keep some sort of a deterrent system that teaches, especially the young community, accountability. Thank you.
The next question begins with Mr. Ludwig. This is kind of hard for you. How many trustee meetings have you attended over the past year?
Every one that we've had. As a trustee, I have never missed one. This is my third year as a trustee, and it's not an onerous, it's actually a pleasurable event. Once a month, we get together, go over the various receipts that the library has spent money on. Prior to coming to the meeting, we get to review the warrants, approve the warrants. If there is a check over a certain amount, which right now escapes me, sometimes the trustee is required to come in and sign that check. I'm confident that neither Kathy or Susan are taking unwarranted or illegal vacations to Aruba with our funds. And so if I'm elected again, I will once again attend every meeting of the library board. Thank you.
I haven't been at any. I have a 5-year-old at home. I have a 2-year-old at home. The pandemic I have my youngest actually is a pandemic baby. He was born on April 8th. I said February, April 8th of 2 years ago. So, we've been kind of homebound for a while. I haven't. That being said, I've been in and out of this library my whole life, and I have read the minutes. I've studied the budget, and I think that's where I could come in and be a nice compliment to the board with my financial experience focused on the budget. So that's where I'm at. But I have looked at everything. I have read it. I'm a student of a lot of things, and I've looked at everything. So anyway, If elected, I would be here for every meeting, but I haven't yet. Thank you.
Well, I did attend one meeting and I felt right at home because I've been at board meetings before and it was well run and very smoothly. I went through the agenda very smoothly. If elected, I definitely would be attending. I'll match Michael with my gold star for attendance. But yeah, I've attended, I think one of the most recent ones, actually, it was where the fines for the automatic renewal was proposed and passed on with the vote.
Next question, I'll start with Mr. Lucchese. What is the role of a trustee in ensuring the continued quality of our library?
All right, so I focused on this a little bit in my opening speech. I couldn't read the whole thing. Actually, I wrote out a 5-minute speech, and then Kathy told me that I could only read 2 minutes. So I'll read the whole thing and why I think I would be a good trustee. So I have 15 years in the financial services industry. I'm currently employed with Raymond James. My career in finance can help the team here at the library manage the budget and be fiscally responsible while achieving common goals and bettering the library. My 15 years of coaching experience and lifelong contacts in this village can help the team with community relations in addition to programs. And my wife, being a former educator and a current special education school administrator, I think she'd be able to help us too. So I would like to explore how we can expand our program offerings for our special education population and create some work study opportunities for young adults with disabilities. You know, like I said, we have a lot of contacts in this village and I can help make this a reality. Furthermore, as a parent of young children, I understand both the importance and danger of technology. Being that I'm fully immersed in the newest changes in technology through my children and my job, I understand the need for balance when integrating technology into the library. So I appreciate the new expansion of the Wi-Fi that the library took, and I look forward to creating opportunities where community members can access information and services through technologically friendly platforms, yet also enjoy all that a traditional library has to offer. Thank you.
Your time is up. I'm just going to read the question one more time. All right. What is the role of a trustee in ensuring the continued quality of our library?
The library board's major role is to ensure that the library provides the best possible service to the community. And to do that, there are several significant tasks that the board excuse me, I was thinking ahead. One of the major one, of course, is set the goals for the library, to review the budget and approve the budget, to have fiduciary responsibility for the paying of bills, for defining and measuring the goals, and to track the meeting of those goals to meet the needs of the community. So to keep this wonderful institution effective in meeting the needs of its community, it would be mission, it would be fiduciary control, oversight, and it would be, well, it's also hiring the director, and we have done that, and it would be negotiating contracts and budgets.
Okay, so the role of the trustee of the board, I think, is, as my colleagues here have mentioned, certainly making sure that the monies spent are well spent, and we have various checks and balances to make sure that happens. We have a bookkeeper looking at the receipts every month, and of course we have the administrative staff upstairs who prepare those reports. But the other thing that I think is important is to support all of the staff of the library, particularly the director and the assistant director, because during the board meetings, we do, as anyone who works with people in a managerial place needs feedback or needs someone to bounce ideas off if you're having difficulty or if you have an issue with an employee or several employees. And so one of the roles the board serves, I think, is to provide feedback, not necessarily direction, but more or less a sounding board for the people who are charged with running the library, which would be, of course, Kathy and Susan in the back of the room there. And I had something else, but how many? I've said a few seconds. Okay. No, yeah, 30 seconds. It escapes me now, so I'll just leave it at that. That supporting the staff and making. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is we do get reports from every one of the different parts of the library: the children's, young adults, research, and that gives us a good idea about what's going on at the library. That's what I meant to add as well. So we really do have a good feel for what's going on.
All right, I think the next one starts with can you tell us a book that you recently read and if you would recommend it and why?
Actually, it would be hard for me to limit because I'm a voracious reader of all different types of books, but I'm going to mention only three. The first one that I really read twice immediately was called Norwegian by Night by Derek Miller. It is a remarkable book that really explores relationships between fathers and sons and the impact of war and service in war that has on returning soldiers. The other book that, the other two books, one is called Hidden Valley Road, and it is a history, it is a nonfiction book that is a history of a family that had 12 children and 6 boys were afflicted with schizophrenia. And because of the age spread, it had it explored the treatment of schizophrenia over decades and how it changed. It was a phenomenal book. The last one, I hate to say, is I just recently read the Robot novels by Isaac Asimov. And written in the 50s, it foretold some of the issues around artificial intelligence, around technology, around immigrants, around a lot of what's going on today. So those are 3 books that I have to recommend to everyone.
We did have this question ahead of time, and so otherwise I might have had a little difficulty pulling it up. But I listed a few things, and since in my professional life I tend to read journal articles about education and or health and health science. For pleasure, I read a lot of novels, and I'm particularly enamored with an author by the name of Gary Steingart, who's written a number of books called Super Sad True Love Story, Lake Success, Our Country Friends, which just came out in 2021, which sort of chronicled people who escaped the city to go up to the Hudson Valley because of the pandemic and all of the machinations that occurred among his assorted friends who are artists, and there were all sorts of things going on. I will mention also that I'm a huge fan of Don DeLillo. If you've not read it as an academic, White Noise is a terrific send-up of academia. And so if you're in that line of work, I think you'd enjoy White Noise as well. But I think his main, well, he's so extensively, but I really, really enjoyed Underworld, which begins with the shot heard around the world at the old Giant Stadium when the Giants beat the Dodgers in the 1950s. So if you're not familiar with it, I would strongly recommend it.
Thank you. So I am more of a current events reader. I read about 2 to 4 hours a day of of economic news and various current events, which I have to stay on top of for my career and my job. So the majority of my brain power goes to that. But I lost my dad about 5 years ago. He was a well-known guy here in town, and he was a good man. I lost him to cancer, and I had a hard time dealing and with his death. And a friend of mine gave me a book that was called The Proof of Heaven by Dr. Eben Alexander. And this guy the doctor was a neuroscientist, And, he didn't believe in heaven, or he didn't believe in anything that was, afterlife or anything like that. And it kind of tells his tale of him being a neuroscientist. And he went through a out-of-body experience, I guess, where he thought it was a hallucination, but it wasn't. Anyway, it kind of made me feel a little better that I may see my dad again, right? So I know we all go through struggles or whatever in life, or we deal with family loss. And when I lost my dad, when I lost my best friend, this book actually made me feel a little better. So I didn't believe everything that it said or whatever, but I read it. It made me feel better. And now when a friend of mine loses a close friend or a family member, I refer the book to them, and they thank me for it. So I would recommend reading it. It's pretty cool. The guy's a doctor, neuroscientist. Takes a different approach to the outer body experience. So anyway, time's up. Thank you.
I think the first one starts with Mr. Ludwig now. Has your library usage changed over the past 5 years?
Again, we got this question. But anyway, I've begun to use Libby much more to access various popular press magazines. Why would I subscribe? Right? I mean, if I was subscribed, it would come to my house and I'd read it and then leave it around, and my wife would say, "Are you done with this yet? Get rid of it. I don't want to see this around." So Libby has solved that problem because I can download whatever I want, read it, and it doesn't leave a mess around the house. They're readily available online, and like I said, when I'm done reading, they won't be around the house. It'll automatically be returned to the library. I've also checked out a Roku stick on occasion, and this is a welcome resource available to anybody in the community. I've not taken advantage as frequently as I like, but the fact that the library has museum passes available for a wide array of cultural institutions in the metropolitan area is a great resource. And lastly, I frequently use book reviews that sound interesting and maintain a list on my phone. I then look up the book on the library catalog, and if it's not immediately available, I put in a request and I come in and pick it up when I'm notified that it's resting for me here behind the circulation desk. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Pre-pandemic, we attended the Tot Spot and the various programs that are here for the toddlers, and they're amazing. Obviously, the pandemic happened. It kind of changed our usage here with the library. I know I haven't yet, but my sister used the museum passes, as Michael said, and they're amazing. I think an awesome idea for the community, and they're used greatly. My wife actually tutors here, which is something, she's an educator, and I didn't know this until I started exploring, the option of running as a trustee here, but not every library allows tutors. So I think that it's amazing that the Rockville Center Library allows tutors. And I think it's cool. I think it's great for the community. It's great for the kids. So I think that's cool. I use the library as a quiet retreat. So I'm one of those people that come in. You may not see me, take out books or join a club, but I come here. I have to take a lot of CE credits for my work, and I have to take courses, and I don't do it in my office, and I don't do it at home. I come here. So I walk in the door, I sit at one of the tables, and it's peaceful, and it's nice, and it's relaxing, and I really appreciate it. And that's how I use the library. My family uses it.
Thank you. You reminded me that it is a quiet space, and sometimes throughout times in my life, it's been a refuge. And I've gone to the library, and then you can grab a book and go into a corner and have a quiet time because you're at the library. But during the last 5 years, I've become a heavy online user of the library. Very often, I'll check the catalog online before I make the trip in. And sometimes I'll just request a book to be brought to the desk. So it's a little easier for me to get in and out. During the pandemic, when the library was shut down, I did a lot of requests on interlibrary loan, and it would be brought to me curbside. And I really appreciated that. I'm also become a heavy Libby user and a Hoopla user. And I had a discussion with Suze, and then she said, well, get on Hoopla. And I discovered that I was already on Hoopla, but for the library where I used to live, so I had to transfer it over. So you can download movies, you can download music, you can get magazines and periodicals. So I have to say, over time, I've been relying, just as our stats have shown, more online, more ebooks, more e-audiobooks. And I think that we're seeing the transformation of how people get information for recreation or for creativity through online media.
The last question before you'll each have time for a closing statement. You each have 2 minutes for that. Last question is, how do you see the library best serving the community of Rockville Center?
So I think we need to keep advancing our technology, but we also need to maintain the integrity and history of the Rockville Center Library. I think it has to be a balance. So being a hometown person, I remember this when I was a child, from this library in the 80s and the 90s. Seeing the books on the shelves, you get the feeling when you walk into the library. I think that feeling, the solace you take when you walk into the library needs to maintain itself. But at the same time, we need to advance with technology. So I think it's really important that we have a candidate and we fill our board with people that have a pulse on the village and that have that are representative of the community here as far as, what we need, what we're looking for, what direction we want to go. I think I fit that role. And, I appreciate, that, but I think we really need to keep a balance as far as what that goes with where that goes with technology and maintaining the boutiquiness of the Rockville Center Library.
I agree. I think that the library is a presence, it's a physical presence, and then we can't undersell that. We have a place that was a solace. We talked about that, a refuge, a place where children explore and interact and play, a place where people learn new skills, whether it's for recreation or games or meetings. And it's one of the open spaces in our town. And that physical presence must be maintained and supported. And it's costly. But we need to think of that as something that is the center of our community. The other thing that I welcome is when I come into the library, there is always an intriguing display of books around themes, around staff picks, around what's going on in the world. I was just looking at the scan of books for mothers, all different books for mothers. And I think that is the spark that the library's physical presence gives to the community. So how can we best serve the community? By maintaining this facility and looking for ways to entice more and more members of the community into the facility, whether it's welcoming them in whatever language they're comfortable in, or whether it's having events that will intrigue them enough to come in maybe for the first time and to come back.
Okay, well, no one would say the COVID pandemic was a good thing. Some good things came out of it. The library and its staff were able to pivot and continue to provide services and resources to the public. Since we could not congregate in person, many of the programs offered by the library went virtual and were warmly received by the community. We are back to in person, but virtual and hybrid offerings will continue and are a welcome addition to the library's offerings. As ways of access to materials continue to evolve, the library has been very adept at keeping up. Through our mobile app, Libby, patrons have access to a wide variety of print materials, books, magazines, newspapers. We have seen, as mentioned earlier, a decline in our usage of music and video collection, a fact reflected by the increased use of subscription services by our patrons, such as Spotify and Netflix. And so our budget will reflect this by reducing spending on these items and increasing spending on electronic access to books, magazines, and other print material. Lastly, it's important for the library to continue to offer resources and services to the many demographics we serve: toddlers, children, young adults, senior citizens, homebound residents. This can be achieved in several ways: occasional surveying each of the demographics, or visiting of the libraries. Local, regional, and national trends in library resources and programming I know Kathy has accused me of being a library junkie because usually when I go somewhere, I always go to the library and visit it. But it is important to stay abreast what other libraries are doing and keeping up with the technology. And I would have to say that our professional staff is dedicated to lifelong learning, and this needs to be supported and encouraged.
Thank you. All right, that ends the Q&A portion. Now you're each going to have 2 minutes for closing statements, and we're going to go in the opposite order of the opening statements. So we're going to start with Ms. Sussman.
Thank you for the opportunity to answer questions and to explain why I'm a strongly qualified candidate for the position of Library Board Trustee. As its name implies, a trustee is entrusted with the care for something of value. In this case, it is an institution that is well loved and well respected, our public library. The quality of our library did not happen by accident. It has been the past and current boards of trustees with their professional staff and the director that have exercised responsibilities to ensure that this is a library of quality to serve its community. I can bring many skills, professional skills, to my role on the library board. I had a successful career in public administration, mostly in public community colleges in 3 states. Much like public libraries, community colleges are now more than single mission institutions. They offer recreational, cultural, business, and leisure activities, as well as educational services to multiple populations, from young children and their families to senior citizens. I worked on accreditation reports and negotiated contracts. I understand institutional budgeting, staffing, and project development, as well as strategies to survey and identify population changes and to set institutional goals to meet new challenges. Finally, this is the only public position I desire, and is the one that my skills and passion are best aligned with. I have a deep passion for libraries and a commitment to their role in our democracy. They must be open to all members of the community to enhance the vitality of individuals and our village. I am committed to enhancing the role of Rockville Center Public Library in the lives of its residents.
I'd first like to thank the directors and the rest of the library staff for doing an incredible job. In my opinion, this is one of the best libraries on Long Island. I'd also like to give kudos to the current board, led by Michael Ludwig. I think you all do a wonderful work, and I thank you for your service to the village. Public service is noble and not something that many people want to do nowadays. So I sincerely thank each and every one of you. Over the past few weeks, I've gotten to speak or meet with most everybody that is here, that kind of works here, or attends the library. And if elected, I would love to build upon these relationships in order to progress on the Rockville Center Library's already successful mission. Building a family type of board and community is important to me, and I know that I can help make that a reality. I enjoyed meeting with everyone that was in attendance at the Friends of the Rockville Center Library event that I attended at Polka Dot Pound Cake last week. There's groups like these that create connections amongst different people for the good of the community. I think I bring a unique background to the board. I believe my financial experience differentiates me as a candidate. I think Michael and Merrill are extremely amazing people with a lot to bring. And no matter how this election ends, I think the library will be in a good path. And I just want to say that even if I lose, I'd love to still help in any way that I can, because I think that, you know, there's so much contentiousness in society and in everything right now. I think the library is a solace. I think it's a really cool, quiet place. And that is the good in the village. That is the good. You know, I lived here in this village through 9/11. I saw the good in everything that went on and how everyone came together. And the library has always kept that integrity. And I think it's really important to keep that and to keep that in mind. And like I said, however this election ends, I think it's really important that the library moves forward. And if I lose, you guys call me. I would love to help you. Time's up. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you for listening as I ask for your vote to continue to serve as trustee. I ask that we take a moment and consider the importance of our library. It's an institution supported by your tax dollars, and it belongs to you, the public. Public space is essential to a functioning democratic society. Our democracy depends on an informed and critical citizenry. Libraries serve both of these functions. The library boasts an impressive record of service to the community. During 2021, the library served 12,822 patrons. The population of Rockville Center was 24,023 at the 2010 census. What other institution provides service to half the population? The library is always trying to increase the number of patrons we serve. Our recent efforts include reducing fines and automatically renewing borrowed items as one strategy to increase engagement. During 2021, the library offered 325 kids programs, 75 young adult programs, 89 book discussions, 23 author visits, and 200 exercise classes. The library accumulated over 150,000 checkouts of all kinds during 2021. Thanks to the Friends of the Library and other supporting organizations, the library circulated 879 museum passes. For the average Rockville Center household, the tax bill for the 2022-2023 library is $504. That's a $13 increase from last year. As a point of comparison, the average cable package is $2,000 a year, 4 times higher. A conservative estimate of cell phone usage for a family of 4 starts at $1,500 a year, 3 times higher. Clearly, the library is quite a bargain. But our library is so much more than the tax bill necessary to keep it open and thriving. Eric Kleinenberg in Palaces of the People about libraries writes, libraries are not the kinds of institutions that most social scientists, policymakers, and community leaders usually bring up when they discuss social capital and how to build it. The social infrastructure provides the setting and context. In other words, the library is an important part of our community. Thank you. I know my time is up.
I want to thank all 3 candidates for your very thoughtful and heartfelt. Thank you all, and now I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Michael.
Okay, that concludes our candidates forum, and we need, I believe, we get a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? All those in favor? Thank you all for attending. That concludes our budget meeting and library candidates.